What's up, everybody? It's the Digital World Podcast, and today we're gonna have a serious conversation about everything that's happening because I want you guys to be educated on not just your investment, growing your portfolio, but about everything that's happening right now. Um, it's not just about growing your portfolio because you can have all the money you want, but if you don't have freedom, the money doesn't matter because you can't really do anything. And I think George Gammon explains it in such a perfect way that I had to show you guys this video, and later we'll jump into other things about digital assets. But take a listen to what he has to say. Bear with me. It's a few minutes long, but it'll be worth your time.
I haven't really thought about economics or investing at all, which, as you guys know, is very rare for me. My entire focus, especially after going to Puerto Rico and seeing the just complete martial law, and it's something straight out of 1984, a George Orwell novel. After seeing that, my focus has really been on how do I maximize my personal freedom and liberty. Not at least for the next couple months. And let me buy some time here and try to figure this stuff out. Because I've been studying history. I've been studying the propaganda used in Germany prior to World War II. I've been studying the book I've been just nonstop listening to this weekend has been The Road to Serfdom by Hayek. And I'm just trying to figure out what's our end game here. Because if you think about it, and Tucson is a perfect example. I'm a guy that I'm not a billionaire or anything like that, but I have, compared to most people, I have a lot of resources, financial resources. I would be considered probably a quote-unquote rich guy. But no matter how rich of a guy I am, my life is hell in Tucson. I can't get an Uber. I can't get a reservation at a restaurant. I can't live my life the way I want to live my life. Just the normal stuff, the normal things that you enjoy doing on a daily basis that make life fun, that make being a human being fun. You can't do it right now in Tucson, no matter how much money you have. So I know that it's fun to talk about gold and Bitcoin and stocks and this, that. And obviously, that's where my focus is going to be in the future. But I think we all need to remember that without personal freedom and liberty, the money doesn't make any difference. The Bitcoin is irrelevant. The gold is irrelevant. The size of your portfolio doesn't mean a thing if you live in Venezuela and you can't get out. Which proves the point that I try to make in my whiteboard videos over and over and over and over again. Which, as you guys know, that point is the wealth of a society is not measured by how many currency units are in everyone's bank account. That's not wealth. The wealth is the amount of goods and services the society can produce efficiently. And right now, it should be blatantly obvious to everyone in the United States that the amount of goods and services we have now is far less than it was prior to the government instituting the lockdowns they did in 2020. And it's far less than it was prior to the government creating all of these stimmy checks and distorting the economy the way they have. So this is just a long way of answering your question, but I think it's important to really...
And so, and he has a very good point. And I would highly recommend you going and checking out his other videos on his channel where he talks about various aspects of what's happening right now with the Fed. And it's good to think about because it's not just about these numbers that you see in your bank account or any other kind of wealth that you may amass. If you have a restriction on your freedoms, like you said, the things that make being a human fun are taken out of the equation. Now, everyone has a different idea of what fun is, but my thing is, if you're, for example, you can be having the biggest bank account, but if you can't do things that are out, for example, you can't go out because, or you can't do this because everything's limited, then it doesn't matter. Like if you have all this money, I think is the point he's trying to make. There are certain restrictions to your freedom, and that's why I do believe that, if you're invested in the digital asset space and you do, it runs up, right? Like taking profits is a good thing, and being able to, pay off any kind of debts, or be able to buy yourself land or a home for your family to live in. At least you have like somewhere to live in. That's important. And I think that, and we'll go over it in a bit, but we're seeing where the current is tending with all this money printing. It's devaluing our purchasing power, and it's causing for, a lot of currency units to be created. And at the end of the day, you may have so many currency units, but like he's saying, but if you don't have goods and services, it it doesn't matter how much currency units you have. That's not wealth. Wealth is the goods and services a nation has. And we're entering a crisis in which a lot of people think they're wealthy because, or they're well off, or they're fine because they have all these currency units, but in reality, they're poor. And it's sad to see where this nation is headed, but we're headed towards ultimate destruction. I'm gonna keep it real here because I want you to be aware of what's actually happening. Okay, now I'm moving on to this because it says the fourth stimulus check, lawmakers press Biden to say yes to more payments. Now, with all these stimulus checks, the United States has started something they can't end. And it's almost like, and George Gammon gives this example, it's almost like a heroin addict. Once they start, it's hard to stop. And every time you need more and more and more. And this eventually is probably going to lead to universal basic income. And that's where we're at. You're creating more currency units into the system. And people think that because we have more currency in our bank account, we're more rich. But with what's currently happening right now, that can't be further from the truth. Now, the BIS, which is the central bank of central banks, put out a breakdown of the CBDC projects around the world. And this is where we're going, where the central banks want to have ultimate control of currency units. They can track where everything goes, what's being spent, expiration date on those currency units. So you have a limited amount of time of spending it because it's all digital. They control it. They can control the velocity of money. Michael Arrington posted on his Twitter. He said, maybe I'll show it some other time, but go ahead and look at it. He said that he sees that it's a genius plan to have central bank digital currencies. It's evil, but it's genius because it allows the central banks to literally monitor and tweak and micromanage every single thing about money flow. And so that's where the current is tending. And I want you to be aware. I want you to be educated so you're prepared. Because at the end of the day, one thing I'm big about is you may have all these digits in your bank account, which you can see electronically, but you don't tangibly hold it. It's abstract. Your wealth is abstract. So at any moment, if they want to unplug you, you could be unplugged. And that's what I'm saying. It's good to have something that's tangible, like property. Now, this is Mark Carney from the Bank of England explaining to you where these things are going.
Simultaneously clearing the price of the drinks using this technology. How do you see that? That's about just getting rid of the middleman in financial transactions.
Yeah, I mean, so part of the genius, if you will, of cryptocurrencies is that, as we all know, they're distributed. They cut out the central banks, they cut out the banks, and they're ideally directly peer-to-peer between you and I. And so the challenge for payment systems is to move in that direction, so we can instantaneously move money from my account to your account to the publican's account, the guy who runs the pub, directly. And what we're doing at the Bank of England is we're reorganizing the core of the system in a way that allows new payment providers to just plug in. They could be using distributed ledger technology. They can use other technologies. And we're in a position where these innovative so-called PSPs will be able to provide those types of services. You're seeing similar innovation amongst banks in the U.S., other places. And so this is coming. And as I say, that's the challenge that we have to meet. We have to meet the challenge of what these cryptocurrencies are trying to do. They're not doing it that well, but they do point the way to the future.
We'll talk a bit about what you said about regulation of Bitcoin, but I just want to go back on that a little bit, because you talked about this is the thing you're most positive about to do with cryptocurrencies is getting rid of these very high transaction costs in effect that we have from these day-to-day transactions. If you're JP Morgan or any financial institution, you're basically...
And so, I mean, if that sounds like anything that I talk about all the time, what digital asset would you think he would refer to? And this is Mark Carney. Now, he wrote a section in the, I believe, for the G30, if I'm not mistaken, where it explains that in order to circumvent and leapfrog these slow payment systems, you would use the digital asset XRP. And so, in the current space you are in, you want to invest your money into things that will go up. But you got to remember that you want to take profits. You want to take profits and put into something tangible, okay? And that's not financial advice, but it's something to consider. Now, this is Brad Garlinghouse, and these are some pretty bullish comments. Listen to what he has to say.
Most important thing that is going on in crypto is understanding what is real and what is just hype. Some, I think, may look back on Bitcoin and find that it was the Napster of digital assets. What I mean by that is Napster was the first to digitize music and demonstrate, hey, if you digitize music, you can do a lot of cool things with that. But ultimately, they were circumventing trademark laws, they were circumventing royalty payments, and government stepped in, and Napster was not successful.
And he's absolutely on track with what he's saying. Now, why did I start with that video and end with, some bullish comments and things like that about the digital asset XRP? This is the reason. We see all this volume happening. We know the utility and use case it brings, on-demand liquidity, cross-border payments, low frictions, low value or costs, low value costs for institutions. And this is what it brings. It brings real utility that solves an issue in the financial markets around the world. Now, I'm not saying don't invest and don't do anything. No, what I'm saying is put your money in things that actually bring utility. And because right now we're in a state which anything can happen. Regulation can step in, and all these assets that don't have utility go to zero, right? But also, so you want to put your money where it will grow. But also, I want you to be aware of the financial situation this nation and this entire world in, and where these central planners are leading everyone. Okay, and that's to digital currencies, because they want the ultimate control. And I want you to be aware of that, because wealth has become more and more and more abstract. And the more abstract it is, to the average Joe, the less power they have over it, and the more power the central banks have. Now, I want you to be aware of that. That's why it's important that if you are invested in this, you do take your profits. You do put it into something that's tangible, whether that be properties or like real estate properties, or whether that be precious metals, whatever the case. Okay? And like I said, it's not financial advice, but you should consider it and think about that. Hope this episode has brought you some value. Like and subscribe. And we see where the current is tending, and it's always good to be aware. This is the Digital World Podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode.